My name's Mike, and I've been married to Laura for nearly 10 years. We don't have any kids, which was a mutual decision. We live in a small, quiet suburb outside of Chicago, where I work as a software developer, and Laura manages a local boutique. Our life together seemed picture perfect on the outside. A nice house, a couple of cars, and frequent vacations that filled our photo albums with happy memories. We met in college, fell in love quickly, and decided to tie the knot after graduation. Our friends always said we were the perfect couple, and I believed it too. We had our ups and downs, like any couple, but we always found our way back to each other. Laura was my rock, my confidant, and the person I thought I'd grow old with. Our home was cozy, a 2-story house with a neatly trimmed lawn and a white picket fence. It was our little haven away from the hustle and bustle of city life. We spent weekends gardening, hosting barbecues for friends, and curling up on the couch with a good movie. Life was good, or so I thought. Everything seemed to be going well until I started noticing some changes in Laura's behavior. It wasn't anything drastic at first, just small things that I brushed off as stress from work. But as time went on, those small things grew into bigger issues that I couldn't ignore. And that's where our story begins, with a man who thought he had it all, only to have his world turned upside down by betrayal. The first signs were subtle. Laura had always been a creature of habit, but recently she started changing her routines. She used to come home from the boutique around 6, and we'd have dinner together. Lately, she'd been coming home later and later, often with vague excuses about staying late to handle inventory or meet with suppliers. She also started dressing up more, even on days when she didn't have work meetings or social plans. It was like she was trying to impress someone. At first, I convinced myself it was just a phase. Maybe the boutique was busier than usual, or she was trying to spice things up after almost a decade of marriage. But then there were the phone calls. She'd step out of the room to take them, lowering her voice and speaking in hushed tones. When I asked who it was, she'd brush it off with a casual, "Oh, just a friend," or "work stuff, you know." Her behavior became more erratic. She was on her phone constantly, texting away with a slight smile on her face. When I asked her about it, she'd get defensive, accusing me of being paranoid. "Can I have a little privacy?" she'd snap, her eyes flashing with anger. It wasn't like her to be so secretive, and it planted a seed of doubt in my mind. One evening, while she was in the shower, I saw her phone light up with a message. I couldn't help myself. I peeked. The message was from someone named Sam and read, "Can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing." My heart dropped. I didn't know any Sam in Laura's circle of friends. My mind raced with questions. Who was this person? What had they done last night? I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I started paying closer attention.
Her lies became more apparent. She'd tell me she was meeting a friend for coffee, but when I'd suggest joining them, she'd quickly shut it down. "It's just a girl's thing," she'd say. Or, "You wouldn't enjoy it." Her nights out became more frequent, and her excuses more flimsy. One weekend she told me she was going on a business trip to New York for a boutique convention. I found it odd that she hadn't mentioned it before, but I didn't question her. While she was gone, I decided to check our joint bank account. There were charges for expensive restaurants and a hotel in the city, far more than a simple business trip would require. I tried to talk to her when she returned, but she was evasive and distant. "It's just work, Mike. Stop making such a big deal out of everything," she said, her tone cold.
But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The Laura I knew wouldn't lie to me, wouldn't hide things from me. Desperate for answers, I started to dig deeper. I checked her phone records, looking for frequent calls and texts from numbers I didn't recognize. One number stood out. It appeared over and over again. I dialed it from my phone one day when she wasn't around. A man answered, his voice casual and friendly. "Hey, babe," he said, thinking it was Laura. I hung up, my heart pounding. I began to piece things together, but I needed concrete proof. I needed to catch her in the act. My suspicions were eating me alive, turning our once happy home into a minefield of mistrust. I had to know the truth, no matter how much it would hurt. So, I waited and watched, hoping for the opportunity to uncover what Laura was hiding from me. I never imagined the truth would be delivered to me in such a devastating and explicit way. It was a Monday evening and Laura was out again, claiming she had a late meeting at the boutique. I was home alone, trying to distract myself with work. but my mind kept wandering back to her strange behavior. Just as I was about to give up and go to bed, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, there was no one there, just a small, unmarked package sitting on the welcome mat. My name was written on it, but there was no return address. Confused, I brought it inside and tore it open. Inside was a USB drive and a note that read, "You deserve to know the truth." My heart raced as I plugged the USB drive into my laptop. A video file popped up, and with trembling hands, I clicked play. The screen filled with an image of Laura, but not the Laura I knew. She was in a dimly lit room, wearing lingerie I had never seen before. My stomach churned as I watched her seductively interact with the camera. Then, 3 men entered the frame. They surrounded her, touching her, kissing her, undressing her. I felt a surge of nausea as they started having sex with her, all at once. Laura seemed to be enjoying it, moaning and encouraging them, completely lost in the moment. The scene was explicit, raw, and left nothing to the imagination. I paused the video, unable to watch any more. I felt like I was going to be sick. My wife, the woman I had loved and trusted for years, was not just having an affair. She was engaging in these extreme sexual acts with multiple men. I couldn't comprehend it. How had it come to this? Why hadn't I seen the signs? But the nightmare didn't end there. There were other files on the USB drive, photos, videos, and chat logs. As I went through them, the horrifying reality unfolded. Laura had been making money by selling her body. The videos were professionally shot, with high production values. She had a whole secret life, making a living from these explicit acts. The chat logs were filled with messages from various men, discussing payments, setting up meetings, and praising her for her performances. I read through them, my vision blurring with tears of anger and betrayal. One message stood out. "You're amazing, Laura. The best I've ever had. Looking forward to our next session." I sank into the chair, feeling like my world had been ripped apart. How could she do this to us? To me? The Laura in those videos was a stranger, someone I didn't recognize. I felt a mixture of fury, disgust, and heartbreak. The woman I had vowed to spend my life with was not who I thought she was. Just then, I heard the front door open. Laura was home. I quickly pulled the USB drive from the laptop and shoved it into my pocket, my mind racing with what to do next. I couldn't look at her the same way, knowing what I had just seen. "Hey, honey," she called out, her voice cheerful. "I'm back. The meeting went well. How was your evening?" I couldn't speak. I just stared at her, my anger boiling over. She noticed my expression and her smile faded. "Mike, what's wrong?" "What's wrong?" I echoed, my voice trembling with rage. "You want to know what's wrong, Laura? How about this?" I pulled the USB drive from my pocket and held it up. "Someone dropped this off tonight. I watched it. I saw everything." Her face went pale. "Mike, I can explain," she stammered, backing away. "It's not what you think." "Not what I think!" I shouted, cutting her off. "I saw you, Laura, with those men, making money from it. How could you do this to me? To us?" Tears welled up in her eyes, but I couldn't tell if they were from guilt or just because she had been caught. "Please, let me explain," she begged. I didn't want to hear her excuses, but I needed to know why. "Explain then. Tell me how the woman I married turned into this." Laura took a deep breath, trying to compose herself. "It started a few months ago," she said, her voice shaking. "The boutique wasn't doing well. We were struggling to pay the bills, and I didn't want to worry you. I thought I could make some extra money just for a little while to get us back on our feet." "And this is how you decided to do it?" I spat, unable to contain my disgust. "By selling your body. By betraying me in the worst possible way." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't know it would go this far. It just spiraled out of control. I'm so sorry, Mike. I never meant for you to find out like this." I felt a wave of cold anger wash over me. "You're only sorry you got caught," I said, my voice cold. "I trusted you, Laura. I loved you. And this is how you repay me?" She tried to reach out to me, but I stepped back, not wanting her to touch me. "Mike, please. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can work through it." I shook my head, feeling a profound sense of loss. "I don't think we can, Laura. I don't think I can ever look at you the same way again." The room was silent except for her sobs. I turned away, unable to bear the sight of her. I needed to think, to process everything I had just learned. But one thing was clear. The life I thought I had was gone, shattered by the woman I thought I knew. The days that followed were a blur. My mind was in a constant state of turmoil, replaying the horrific images and the gut-wrenching conversation with Laura over and over again. I couldn't stay in the same house with her. Every time I saw her, it felt like a dagger twisting in my heart. So, I started staying late at work and sleeping on the couch when I did come home. Laura, on the other hand, was desperate to talk, to explain, to somehow make things right. But every attempt she made to bridge the gap between us only deepened my anger and resentment. I wasn't ready to listen. I wasn't ready to forgive. One night, after another sleepless stretch on the couch, I decided that enough was enough. I couldn't keep avoiding the confrontation that needed to happen. I needed to hear her out, to understand the full extent of her betrayal, even if it destroyed me further. I was tired of living in limbo, trapped by my own thoughts. I found Laura in the kitchen, nervously preparing dinner. Her eyes lit up with a glimmer of hope when she saw me approach. "Mike, please, can we talk?" she said, her voice trembling. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my emotions. "Yeah, Laura, we need to talk, and this time, I want the whole truth. No more lies." She nodded, wiping her hands on a dish towel before sitting down at the kitchen table. I joined her, feeling a heavy weight settle over me as I looked into her eyes, searching for any remnants of the woman I had loved. "How did this start, Laura?" I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. "I need to know everything." She took a shaky breath, tears welling up in her eyes. "It started with a few pictures," she began, her voice quivering. "I met a guy online who said he could help me make some money discreetly. At first, it was just a few innocent photos. Then it escalated to videos, and before I knew it, he was asking me to do more. I clenched my fists, trying to control the rage bubbling up inside me. And you just went along with it? For what, Laura? For money?" "It wasn't just about the money," she admitted, looking down at her hands. "I felt desired, attractive. I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. The boutique wasn't enough. I wasn't enough. And I thought it wouldn't hurt anyone if I kept it a secret." "Kept it a secret?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You were sleeping with other men, Laura. How could you think that wouldn't hurt anyone? Did you ever think about what it would do to me if I found out?" She sobbed, covering her face with her hands. "I know, Mike. I know. I was stupid and selfish. I thought I could control it, that it wouldn't go this far. But it did. And now I've lost everything." Her words stung, but I needed to know more. "How many men, Laura? How many times did you betray me?" She looked up at me, her eyes red and swollen from crying. "I don't know," she whispered. "I lost count. It was a lot, Mike. I'm so sorry." Her admission hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt the bile rise in my throat, but I forced myself to stay composed. "And the money? You were making money from this?" She nodded, shame written all over her face. "Yes. It started as just extra cash, but then it became more. I thought if I could just make enough, I could stop. But it never seemed to be enough." I stood up, unable to sit any longer. I paced the kitchen, trying to process everything she was saying. "And what about the videos, Laura? Someone dropped off a USB drive with a video of you. How did that happen?" She looked genuinely confused. "I don't know. I never gave anyone our address. I was always careful about that. Someone must have found out and wanted to hurt us." I stopped pacing and turned to face her, feeling a mixture of disbelief and rage. "So, what now, Laura? Do you expect me to just forgive you and move on? Pretend like none of this happened?" She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "No, Mike. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want to make it right. I want to fix this, if that's even possible." I sighed, feeling the weight of her words. "I don't know if it is, Laura. I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again. But for now, I need some space. I need to figure out what I want, what we should do next." She nodded, wiping her tears away. "I understand. I'll give you the space you need. Just know that I'm sorry. and I love you." I couldn't respond. I turned and left the kitchen, needing to get away from her, from the house, from everything that reminded me of her betrayal. I drove aimlessly for hours trying to clear my head, but the images and words haunted me. The life I had known was gone, shattered by the woman I thought I could trust with my heart. I didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain: things would never be the same again. The next few days were a haze of anger and confusion. I stayed at a friend's place, trying to distance myself from the chaos at home. I kept replaying everything in my mind: the videos, the confessions, the lies. I felt like a fool, betrayed in the most intimate way possible. But beneath the hurt, a new emotion started to bubble up: the need for revenge. I needed to make Laura and those who exploited her pay for what they had done. I started by digging into her online activities. Late at night, using my friend's computer, I created fake profiles on the platforms Laura had used to sell her services. It didn't take long to find her. Her profile was a grotesque display of the life she had hidden from me, filled with explicit content and dozens of interactions with other men. I downloaded everything I could find: videos, photos, chat logs, compiling a mountain of evidence. My next step was to identify the men she had been involved with. I went through the chat logs and photos, matching faces to names, piecing together their identities. Many of them were local, some even prominent figures in the community. The thought of exposing them filled me with a dark satisfaction. They had taken part in destroying my marriage, and now they would face the consequences. I found an online forum frequented by people from our town and anonymously posted a thread. I uploaded the most damning evidence I had, explicit videos and conversations, and provided enough hints for people to recognize the men involved. The reaction was immediate and explosive. The forum lit up with outrage, accusations, and denials. I watched with a twisted sense of accomplishment as the scandal spread like wildfire. But I wasn't done yet. I needed to confront Laura's lover directly. I tracked down the primary man from the videos, a sleazy individual named Kyle who ran a photography studio downtown. I decided to pay him a visit. I walked into his studio one afternoon, my heart pounding with a mix of rage and adrenaline. The place was sleek, filled with expensive equipment and portraits of smiling families and beautiful models. Kyle was behind the counter, chatting with a client. He glanced up as I approached, his smile faltering when he saw the look on my face. "Can I help you?" he asked, trying to maintain his composure. "Oh, you've helped enough already," I replied, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "We need to talk, now." The client looked between us, sensing the tension, and quickly excused herself. Once we were alone, I leaned across the counter, staring him down. "Do you know who I am?" I asked. Kyle's eyes narrowed. "No, should I?" "I'm Mike, Laura's husband." His face went pale. "Look, man, I didn't know." "Save it," I snapped. "I know exactly what you did, and I have all the evidence. The videos, the messages, everything." Kyle swallowed hard, clearly panicking. "What do you want?" I want you to pay for what you did," I said, my voice low and threatening. "And I'm not talking about money. I want you to know the kind of pain you've caused." He backed away, hands up in a placating gesture. "Look, I'm sorry. It was just business." "Just business?" I laughed bitterly. "You ruined my life, my marriage, and you think you can just walk away with an apology?" I reached into my pocket and pulled out the USB drive, tossing it onto the counter. "This is a copy of everything. I've already sent it to a few friends, just in case something happens to me. Consider it insurance." Kyle stared at the USB drive, his face ashen. "What do you want me to do?" "You're going to disappear," I said, my voice ice cold. "Close this place down and get out of town. If I ever see you again, if I hear that you're back to your old ways, I will make sure this gets into the hands of the police. Understood?" He nodded vigorously, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. Okay. I'll leave. Just, please don't ruin me." "Too late for that," I said, turning on my heel and walking out. As I stepped back onto the street, I felt a grim sense of satisfaction. It wasn't justice, but it was something. My final act of revenge was directed at Laura. I returned home that evening, ready to confront her one last time. She was in the living room, looking haggard and anxious. The sight of her filled me with a mixture of sadness and anger. We need to talk, I said, my voice devoid of emotion. She looked up, eyes filled with fear. Mike, please. I've been trying to make things right. Stop, I interrupted. I've made my decision. I want a divorce. Her face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. No, Mike, please. We can work through this. I love you. I don't believe you, I said coldly. If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. You destroyed everything we had for what? Money? Attention? I can't forgive that. She broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. Please, Mike, I'll do anything. Just don't leave me. I've already filed the papers, I said, ignoring her pleas. You'll be served in a few days. I suggest you get a lawyer. I turned and walked away, her cries echoing in my ears. I knew there would be no going back, no chance of reconciliation. The woman I had loved was gone, replaced by someone I no longer recognized. My only option was to move forward, to rebuild my life from the ashes of our broken marriage. As I left the house, I felt a strange sense of relief. The revenge had been brutal, but it was necessary. It was time to start anew, free from the deceit and betrayal that had poisoned my life. The days that followed were a whirlwind of legal proceedings and emotional turmoil. Laura and I lived in the same house, but we were like strangers, passing each other in the hallways without a word. The tension was palpable, and I knew it was only a matter of time before everything came to a head. One afternoon, I came home to find Laura waiting for me in the living room. She looked exhausted, her eyes red and puffy from crying. She had a stack of papers in front of her, the divorce papers I had filed. Mike, she said softly, her voice breaking. Can we please talk? I sat down across from her, feeling a mix of anger and pity. What is there to talk about, Laura? We both know where this is headed. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. I know I've done terrible things, things that are unforgivable. But I need you to understand that I never meant to hurt you. I was lost, and I made terrible choices. But I want to make things right, even if it's too late for us. I looked at her, struggling to find the words. Laura, you've shattered my trust in you. You betrayed me in ways I never thought possible. How do you expect us to move past that? I don't know, she admitted, tears streaming down her face. But I want to try. I want to go to counseling, to work on myself. I need to figure out why I did what I did. And I need you to know that despite everything, I still love you. Love? I scoffed, shaking my head. How can you say that after everything you've done? Love isn't just a word, Laura. It's actions, it's trust, it's loyalty. And you've destroyed all of that. She flinched at my words but didn't look away. I know, and I'm so sorry. But I believe we can heal from this. It will take time, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I sighed, feeling the weight of her words. Laura, I need to be honest with you. I don't think I can ever look at you the same way again. The images, the betrayal, it's too much. I've filed for divorce because I need to move on. We both do. Her face crumpled, and she sobbed uncontrollably. Please, Mike, don't give up on us. I'm begging you. I felt a pang of guilt and sadness, but I knew what needed to be done. Laura, this isn't just about us. It's about me being able to live with myself. Every time I look at you, I see those videos, those messages. I can't live like that. I deserve a chance to find happiness again, without the shadow of your betrayal hanging over me. She wiped her tears, nodding slowly. I understand, and I won't fight the divorce. But please, can we at least try to end this amicably? I don't want to make things harder for either of us. Of course, I said, my tone softening. I don't want a bitter fight. We can work out the details with our lawyers and try to move forward as peacefully as possible. We sat in silence for a few moments, the gravity of the situation sinking in. Finally, Laura spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I hope that one day you can find it in your heart to forgive me. Not for my sake, but for yours. I nodded, feeling a lump in my throat. Maybe one day, Laura, but right now, I need to focus on healing. With that, I stood up and left the room, leaving her to her thoughts. It was the last real conversation we had before the divorce proceedings took over our lives. The legal process was grueling, but straightforward. We had no children to complicate matters, and our assets were divided fairly. Laura moved out of the house, finding a small apartment downtown. I stayed in the house, though it felt emptier than ever. Our lawyers handled most of the details, but there were a few meetings where we had to face each other. Each time, I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and a strange sense of closure. The life we had built together was gone, replaced by a sterile legal process. The final court date came, and we stood before the judge, confirming our agreement. Laura looked at me, her eyes filled with regret and sorrow. I met her gaze, feeling a deep sadness, but also a sense of finality. This was the end of our journey together, a painful but necessary step toward a new beginning. As we left the courthouse, Laura stopped me. "Mike, I just want to say one last thing. I truly hope you find happiness again. You deserve it more than anyone." "Thank you, Laura," I said, my voice tight with emotion. "I hope you find peace and healing too." We parted ways, and I walked away, feeling a strange mix of relief and grief. The chapter of my life with Laura was closed, and a new one was about to begin. It was time to rebuild, to find myself again, and to create a future free from the pain of the past. With the divorce finalized, I had to face the daunting task of rebuilding my life from the ground up. The house, once filled with memories of happier times, now felt like a hollow shell. Everywhere I looked, there were reminders of what I had lost. It was time for a fresh start. The first step was to clear out the house. I spent weeks sorting through belongings, deciding what to keep, what to donate, and what to throw away. It was a painful process, but also cathartic. I painted the walls, rearranged the furniture, and made the space my own. Slowly, the house began to feel less like a monument to my failed marriage, and more like a place where I could start anew. I decided to take a leave of absence from work. I needed time to heal, to reflect, and to figure out what I wanted from my life moving forward. I used the time to reconnect with friends and family, people I had unintentionally distanced myself from during the turmoil of my marriage. Their support was invaluable, helping me navigate the dark days with compassion and understanding. One evening, as I was having dinner with my best friend Tom, he suggested I try something new. "You've always wanted to travel, Mike. Why not take a trip? Clear your head, see the world. It could be exactly what you need." The idea resonated with me. I had always dreamed of traveling, but had put it off due to work and marital obligations. Now, with no ties holding me back, it seemed like the perfect opportunity. I booked a month-long trip to Europe, planning to visit places I had only read about in books. The trip was transformative, wandering through the streets of Paris, hiking in the Swiss Alps, and exploring the history-rich cities of Italy. I felt a sense of freedom and renewal. I met new people, experienced different cultures, and allowed myself to be fully present in the moment. It was a journey of self-discovery, reminding me that life had so much more to offer. During my travels, I kept a journal, documenting my thoughts and experiences. Writing became a therapeutic outlet, helping me process the emotions I had been struggling with. I realized that I had been defined by my marriage for so long that I had forgotten who I was as an individual. The trip helped me rediscover myself and my passions. Upon returning home, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I decided to channel my experiences and newfound clarity into something productive. I started volunteering at a local community center, helping underprivileged kids with their studies. Giving back to the community gave me a sense of fulfillment that I hadn't felt in years. I also reconnected with my love for photography, something I had neglected over the years. I began taking my camera everywhere, capturing the beauty of everyday moments. It was a reminder that life's simplest pleasures often brought the most joy. As the months went by, I found myself healing in ways I hadn't thought possible. The anger and bitterness gradually faded, replaced by a sense of peace and acceptance. I started dating again, cautiously at first. It was a strange and sometimes awkward experience, but it also made me realize that I was capable of opening my heart again. One evening, while attending a photography exhibit, I met Emily. She was an artist, passionate and vibrant, with a zest for life that was contagious. We struck up a conversation, and it felt like we had known each other for years. Our connection was immediate and deep, unlike anything I had experienced before. Emily and I began spending more time together, exploring the city, sharing our dreams, and supporting each other's creative endeavors. She was a breath of fresh air, helping me see the world in a new light. For the first time in a long time, I felt genuinely happy. As our relationship blossomed, I realized that my journey of healing had led me to a place where I could truly appreciate love and companionship again. Emily wasn't a replacement for what I had lost, but a new chapter in my life, filled with hope and possibility. Looking back, I could see that Laura's betrayal, as painful as it was, had been a catalyst for profound personal growth. It had forced me to reevaluate my life, my choices, and my values. I learned to value myself, to trust my instincts, and to embrace the unknown. The future was still uncertain, but it no longer scared me. I had faced the darkest moments and come out stronger on the other side. I knew there would be challenges ahead, but I was ready to face them with resilience and an open heart. As I stood on the balcony of my new apartment, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. Life had a way of surprising you, sometimes with heartbreak, but also with unexpected beauty and joy. I was ready for whatever came next, armed with the knowledge that I had the strength to overcome anything. My new life was just beginning, and I was excited to see where it would lead.